Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Asia Scotland Institute webinar, and I'm delighted that you've joined us. We're extremely fortunate and grateful to have His Excellency Ambassador Ümit Yalçın, the Turkish Ambassador to London, who will be in conversation with Sir David Logan this afternoon. Subsequently, we'll have Lady Olga Maitland, President of the Defence and Security Forum, and Roddy Gow, Chairman of the Asia Scotland Institute, putting questions. So without further ado, I would like to ask Roddy Gow, Chairman and Founder of the Institute, to start proceedings. Thank you.
Doug, thank you. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Asia Scotland Institute webinar partnered with the Defence and Securities Forum. I'm delighted that we have His Excellency, Turkish Ambassador to the United Kingdom, talking with us today. I'm particularly pleased that Lady Olga Maitland, the founder of DSF and a member of our International Advisory Council, will be introducing him and talking with him. And this is a particularly topical moment to look at Turkey and her foreign policy. And so without more ado, I have greatest pleasure in passing over to Olga Maitland. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Roddy. And may I say what a pleasure it is for Defence and Security Forum to partner with the Asia Scotland Institute. We are old friends and we have many views and ideas in common. Now today, I want to begin with Grenadine, Your Excellency. And today's webinar is really critically important. It's quite rightly entitled Turkey in a Changing World. Turkey joined the NATO alliance 60 years ago. Much has happened in friendship, in partnership, but also, as we see today, more individual ideas about where Turkey is, how Turkey sees itself. But talking us through this will be Sir David Logan, who is our moderator. He's KCMG. Sir David has had a very distinguished career, a lifelong interest in Turkey, and he speaks fluent Turkish. His special interest over the years has been defence and security policy, and he's been ambassador from the end of the 1990s to early 2000s. And before that, he served at the United Nations, in Oslo, in Moscow, Washington, and finally to Turkey, into Ankara. And after he left the Foreign Service, he then became the director of the Center for Studies in Security and Diplomacy at Birmingham University. He also headed up the British Institute in Ankara and also the Center for Turkey Studies. No one can be more affectionate, more sympathetic and understanding of Turkey, but also good friends can also have an honest point of view. So, Sir David, I'd like to welcome you, but before I do that, I'd like to give a very warm welcome to our very good friend, His Excellency the Ambassador. We have many friends in common, and we have many times when we've enjoyed good conversation. But the Ambassador is a very experienced diplomat. He has served in Rotterdam, Baghdad, Moscow, Plovdiv, Dubai. His first ambassadorial posting was in Kuwait, and then back in Istanbul, he had many senior roles in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, culminating in becoming the Undersecretary for Foreign Affairs. Then in London, to our very good fortune, he came in 2018. So I now turn to Sir David to lead off the discussion with His Excellency, the Turkish Ambassador. Sir David.
Thank you very much, Olga. Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be taking part in this event, and delighted, of course, to be here with you and with the and with Ümit, who is an old friend, we've been through things together in Turkey, and since then, and Turkey has a tradition of extraordinarily distinguished foreign service, and Ümit is a very, very distinguished representative of a very highly skilled expert service. I don't want to say too much at this point because Ümit, I think, has got a lot to say on this. But it certainly is a changing world. It very often is in Turkish foreign affairs. Turks will tell you they live in an unsafe neighborhood with odd things happening around them, and of course they are absolutely right. The most recent things, I suppose, and we really are talking about the last week or two, is the resignation of the Minister of the Economy and the Governor of the Central Bank and their replacement. As a result, Turkey's lira has strengthened, and there's a good deal of optimistic outcome of this change. At the other end, we have a new president of the state who replaces or I suppose it will replace a president who was on very close terms with the Turkish president. And I think it's fair to say that President Biden is more representative of the, what shall I say, the Democratic and Republican establishment in Washington. Its attitude to Turkey was generally quite negative, and was President Trump. So that's an important thing for, again, for all of us to factor in to our approach to this changing world. But there are many others, and I think I'd like to pick up after the ambassador's spoken. Thank you.
Thank you for this very warm introduction. And thank you, Lady Olga, for your friendship and for your cooperation with Defense and Security Forum with us. And also, I should thank Roddy and Asia Scotland Institute for this organization and for inviting me to talk about Turkish foreign policy today. And also, I'm very happy to see David as a good friend of myself and Turkey. Yeah, I know that this warm and comforting words at the introduction is very dangerous to see the non-comfortable questions in the future, but I will do my best not to disappoint the distinguished listeners today. Also, I should thank all of them that they give their time to listen to me today. Yes, our topic today is Turkish foreign policy in a changing world. I think we agreed on that the world is changing. We are accepting that the world is changing. For instance, when I came to London, the UK was the member of the EU, but now UK is not the member of the club. Then how will this change our lives in Europe, for instance? 2 weeks ago, the USA president was Trump, but now the president-elect is Biden. And how will this affect the global issues? For instance, until recently, we were considering migrants and migration issue from security perspective. But last week, we learned that 2 Turks in Germany, children of migrants, have invented a vaccine against COVID. Then how will this development shape our perception of migration and migrants? There are many questions related to the changing world, changing challenges and risks. And there is Turkey in the middle of many conflicts and located at the crossroads of most of today's high-octane geopolitical developments with rapidly changing environment, neighborhood. What is Turkey trying to do? Is Turkey shifting its foreign policy objectives? And it's difficult to understand some activities or moves of Turkey. And as the world is changing, then at least we try to understand what is going on in or around Turkey and what is Turkey trying to do as an ally and as a strategic partner of the UK. At least there should be a benefit of doubt vis-a-vis Turkey's activities instead of immediate disapproval or categorical criticism. It is fair to say that Turkey faces the necessity to follow an enterprising policy. I mean, we act not by choice, but rather by necessity. If Turkey remained inactive, European security environment would have been much worse. Rather than doubting Turkey, please understand why we do what we do. One must understand that we must clear terrorists from our vicinity and stop their efforts to undermine the territorial integrity of states. For instance, we must stop a group of countries from grabbing the hydrocarbon resources that belong to all regional countries. And Turkey, for instance, asks its NATO allies not to sacrifice NATO solidarity over EU solidarity. Or, for instance, NATO is uniquely important and it must serve the security interests of all its members, then it must serve Turkey's security interests as well. The fact is that the multiple regions surrounding Turkey are all facing severe fragility and distress. The people dynamic is explosive around us. Nation states are not strong. Just count how many failed or failing states are around Turkey. Security arrangements are missing. The EU's reach is minimal. Do you remember any ceasefire or any deal or any solution which has been succeeded or realized by the EU recently? To understand Turkish foreign policy choices, one should first look at the map. 911 kilometers border with Syria, 378 kilometers border with Iraq, historically unstable region, greatest humanitarian catastrophe since World War II, and its results. Terrorism, foreign terrorist fighters, irregular migration, risk of partition of many states. These are also soft spots for Europe. To our north and southern Caucasus, many frozen conflicts. I think this is a wrong definition, misleading definition. They have been deliberately frozen, in fact. Unfortunately now, Nagorno-Karabakh issue is being solved because Azerbaijan didn't allow it as a frozen one. Eastern Mediterranean, and Aegean has been full of unresolved issues. In this difficult geography, Turkey simply has two main priorities. We have to protect our people and national security interests, and we have to protect our economy from instability factors around us. What do we do against these challenges? We cannot just sit and wait for problems to knock on our door. We should be enterprising and proactive. We have to use both our soft and hard instruments of power. And of course, multidimensional aspects, international and regional organizations. We should cooperate and engage if it is possible, and we should deter if it is needed. Because of that reason, we are defining our foreign policy as an enterprising and humanitarian foreign policy. And it makes action an essential element of foreign policy, not just talk, walk to talk. Let me give some examples for Turkey's recent strategic choices. First, Turkey's military operations in Syria. In 2017, 2018, and 2019, we launched 3 military operations in Syria to prevent terrorism. I remember when we launched the first one, it was against Daesh, and our operation was praised by international community. But for the second and third one, our operations were against PYD, terrorist organizations for us, but that time, international community criticized us. When we made our operations against Daesh, it was praised. When we made our operations against another terrorist organization against Turkey, we were criticized. The other strategic choice, we engaged with Russia for Syria to prevent bloodshed in Idlib, to prevent migration from Idlib. And also Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey sent research vessels to Eastern Mediterranean because it calls for equitable sharing and delimitation were constantly refused for years, and the longest coastal state of the region is forced to have a tiny maritime space. We couldn't allow this. Then we sent research vessels to Eastern Mediterranean. It's another strategic choice. I know that Turkey is being criticized for various issues, but I just want you to look the other way around. How would these crises would have affected Europe's security had Turkey remained idle? Who would have prevented the bloodshed in Idlib or in Tripoli, in Libya? When world is changing, we should adapt ourselves to the new challenges and the new risks. And Turkey is trying to do so. And we should understand that Turkey has broken out of the box that contains all its previous definitions. Former functional ally is trying to be a self-help state because of old frustrations and disappointments. If we could not get enough support from our allies to struggle against terrorism, then we should do something ourselves. If we could not get patries from our allies, then we should find some other ways to get defense systems. If our calls for fair sharing of revenues in Eastern Mediterranean could not be met fairly and correctly, then we should do something. Can you imagine? In Iraq, I spent 2 years there. Upon the fake claims that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, allies invaded Iraq. But we had very concrete and visible and legitimate security concerns and issues about PKK in northern Iraq, and we were criticized because of our air operations. And I remember also in 2015, when the Americans and Germany withdrew the patries from Turkey without saying any reason. Then we were abandoned in the middle of our struggle against terrorism. Then we tried to find out some solution for our defense capability. All these erroneous policies have helped transform Turkey into a self-help state, self-sufficient state, self-reliant state. I believe that there's a broad consensus in Turkey that Turkey must be better appreciated and better treated by our US and European friends and allies. We believe that Turkey already contributes more than its share and no less than an EU country to European peace and security. This is true in terms of stabilizing the neighborhood, fighting terrorism, preventing fragmentation of the nation states around us, blocking irregular migration and many other fields. It's my sincere opinion that both Europe and the US need to look up and face the realities of our day and age. When they do, they will see a capable and reliable partner in Turkey. I would also assert that we need fresh energy and strong opinion leadership based on realism, sincerity, reliability, and trust to re-energize the Western partnership with Turkey. Now I want to stop here to receive your questions. I hope I can answer them fairly. Thank you.
May I now comment, Olga?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ümit. I mean, the first thing I want to say is you quite rightly drew our attention to the success of BioNTech, those two amazing German Turks, which is an extraordinary success and an extraordinary demonstration of the Turkish inventive capabilities. I remember it's not many years ago when Turkey was registering more high-tech patents than Germany. You know, it's an extraordinary fact, and this latest development of the vaccine is another example of it. It's terrific. I, of course, as you know, agree with you entirely about the difficult environment which Turkey occupied. And it seems to me that in those circumstances, it's a requirement. It's a requirement just as much for the UK to have stable relationships with countries and institutions which have shared objectives as we do, and shared interests, and even shared geography. So, you know, the United Kingdom is a medium-sized power in offshore island in Western Europe. We are run by others, including very soon the European Union, and we can't afford that kind of relationship with Europe. Turkey has a relationship with major players in this part of the world. I mean, Russia is the most obvious. Now, in the case of Russia, you are on the opposite sides of Nagorno-Karabakh. You have a difficult relationship, described best in Syria. And on the other hand, you are still heavily dependent on Russia for energy and for exports, and I hope again, Russian tourists. So that exemplifies, I think, the kind of you know, volatility which is bound to impact Turkish interests adversely if Turkey follows develops relationships which are temporary, what's the word, mercantile, opportunistic, I suppose. Like all of us, as I say, the Brits don't entirely understand this point, you need stable relationships with powerful players in the region, because we are, none of us, able to operate in circumstances in which our relationships are transactional and change from day to day, depending on what strikes us as important at the moment. And I mean, there's the United States, of course, and now we have Biden, and I don't know what Biden is going to say about the S-400s, but you know, that's a serious, among others. It's not the only one, but it exemplifies the problem. I mean, you know, the S-400s, you can't just send them back. I mean, Russia isn't like Amazon; you can't return them. So what happens next? So, as I say, I don't want to bang on too long, but my main point, I think, is that I can see absolutely a great many of the things that you said, and I recognise the importance of understanding of Turkish objectives, places like the European Union not operating policies in relation to Turkey, and so on. I accept all that. On Turkish side, as I say, it seems to me that you need stable relationships in which you pursue your interests. And if I could just very briefly say, I know Roddy, from his perspective, wants to talk about a couple of things. One of them is Turkey-China, which is, of course, extremely important. I mean, it's a relationship from which both Turkey and China at the moment profits enormously. And I think also Turkey-Pakistan, which is also very interesting in terms of the relationship. And also that offer of shared citizenship, I think. Anyway, so I think I'm not going to go on about this, except just to say that on China, I mean, China, I think, regards Turkey as a very important market and partner, a NATO country in which to invest and take an interest in. And Turkey, on the other hand, regards China as a very, very valuable source of investment at a time when it's more difficult to find investment from the West. I don't know what you want to talk about, but those are aspects of it. It's a difficult relationship on the superpower. It always is, and I'd be glad to hear your comments on that too.
Over to you, Ambassador.
Yeah, thank you, David, for your comments and question. Before China, I would like to say something about our engagement or relations with Russia. Yeah, everybody knows that we share a long history and wide geography with Russia. And as you mentioned, that we have a relationship with Russia on energy, trade, construction, investments. We are aware that each and every country, I mean, including UK, has its own experience with Russia. But one element that which is different for us, for Turkey, from our allies with respect to Russia is that Russia is a reality right besides us. In Black Sea, Caucasus, Balkans, now in Middle East, I mean, we are practically neighbors. And when we are engaging with Russia in Syria, it doesn't mean that we agreed on all issues with Russia. Look at Georgia or Ukraine. And we know that now it's an issue. I mean, some argue that international society now has a Russian problem to deal with. And the argument goes that at this stage, what we have to reckon with is no longer an assertive Russia, but a Russia which questions and, if possible, strives to undermine the current system. Then, if this is indeed the case, finding the proper way to handle this problem comes next. Is disregarding, marginalizing, or demonizing Russia a remedy to this problem? Or from the other extreme, does engaging Russia mean being submissive to the Russian aggression? Should we begin to talk with the Cold War terms, including containment? I think the accurate approach, I mean, the golden ratio, if I may say, has to be somewhere between. And I think the NATO's dual approach, dual track approach, which is deter and defense Russia collectively, but engage when and where possible, is the good one. And because of our location and current threats we face, our vision, I mean, Turkey's vision has to be 360 degrees. I mean, we cannot ignore anyone, Russia included. Let me clear a few points concerning Turkey's relations with Russia. Turkey's cooperation with Russia does not mean that we agree on everything, that we are not aware of what they are capable of, such as taking huge and dangerous risks for their goals, or violating international law, or conducting direct or hybrid warfare. And moreover, our ties with Russia do not hinder us from expressing our disagreements on several issues, such as territorial integrity of Ukraine, Crimea, Crimean Tatars, Georgia, and even Syria, and so on. This is very important when we look at the Turkish engagement with Russia. For China, of course, China achieved a tremendous development since it started opening up its economy in 1978. And now it's the biggest, second biggest economy, an enormous market for foreign companies. And this Belt and Road Initiative is very strategic. And within this framework of our multidimensional foreign policy and the Asia Anew initiative, which we launched last year, China occupies a very important place in our relations with the region. Turkish-China bilateral relations have been elevated to the level of strategic cooperation in 2010. We have a convergence of interests with China in trade, investment, and technology. Also, China stands the largest trade partner of Turkey in Asia. However, it's also the country which we have the highest trade deficit. Over the last decade, our Turkey has a trade deficit of $20 billion in average per annum. We are working with the Chinese side to address this imbalance and achieve sustainable trade relations. One way to overcome this imbalance is to attract more Chinese investment in Turkey. As of today, Chinese FDI stock in Turkey amounts to a mere $3 billion. And Chinese companies have mainly invested in mining, infrastructure, energy, telecommunication sectors. And also there is untapped potential in energy. And also we supported the Belt and Road initiative. And also we are raising our concerns about Uyghur Turks to Chinese counterparts. Not in a megaphone diplomacy, through megaphone diplomacy, but in a bilateral diplomacy. And for our relations with the USA and the new presidents, you know, it's also, I mean, our relations with the USA is, I mean, time-tested, staunch alliance. Yes, we had issues, we had problems. First of all, we couldn't receive enough support to our struggle against terrorism, against PKK, PYD, and Fethullah Gülen and FETÖ, who launched a coup 4 years ago against our democracy and parliaments. Today, Turkey's resolute and principled stance in many regional conflicts, also particularly in Syria, Libya, deters our common adversaries and terrorist groups, including Daesh. Because of that reason, I believe that apart from the individuals, Turkey-US relationship is an irreplaceable asset in our joint efforts to maintain peace and security in our region and beyond. And also, President-elect Biden knows Turkey very well because he has served as vice president and he has visited Turkey many times, and he knows the files related to Turkey, Middle East, Cyprus very well. And I believe that we can re-energize our relations and cooperation during his term, and we try to find out solutions to our problematic issues through dialogue and diplomacy.
Well,
yes, David.
David, do you want to comment or should I?
No, I think it's time to move on. I mean, I understand very well what the ambassador said. I would only say that there's an important aspect of Turkish soft power which has sadly weakened over the years, and that's Turkish football. We no longer see Turkey winning the European Cup and so on, and it's a sad loss. Thank you.
Well, we certainly.
Sorry, David, at least we defeated Russia 3-2 recently.
I know, I saw.
Well, I'm glad that Turkey, Turkey's football history, in fact, has always been very distinguished, and I'm sure they'll be back in the top ranks. But Ambassador, what I was reflecting on is a slight sense of sort of sadness, really. I detect and understand and appreciate that Turkey is now turning its ship to a more global role. Its relationship with the Asian countries, I understand completely, but I also feel there is something of a drift of Turkey away from its Western European friends. Whether it's the contretemps with France, which of course Britain supports France in this debate, or whether indeed its relationship with Greece. But I just slightly get the feeling that on the one hand, Turkey's contribution to NATO in terms of peacekeeping forces, maintaining the budget is actually second to none. But on the other hand, I don't get the feeling, the great loving of, in fact, I feel you're rather drifting away from Western Europe. I wonder who you regard in Western Europe as your best friend. I like to feel that Britain would be, and we could have a role. But at the moment, I feel there's a bit of a drift. Perhaps you might be able to comment.
Thank you, Olga. I can say the thing which maybe I should say at the end, that there is no drift. We are not drifting away from Europe or the West. We are in Europe and we are in the European institutions and organizations, from Council of Europe to OECD, from NATO to OECD, and all European institutions and organizations. And despite everything, we are the customs union country with the European Union, and there is also despite everything, the accession process, although now it is prevented and stopped. And Turkey's contribution to NATO is very, very critical for the European security. You know, we are the second biggest army in NATO, 8th largest financial contributor to NATO, and among the top 4 contributions to NATO missions and operations. And as a NATO ally for over 68 years, Turkey has made important contributions to Euro-Atlantic security. And it is our strategic priority to keep our commitments within NATO. And also, there is no change in our foreign policy priorities to be the member of the European Union, despite everything. Many people, including Turkish people, is asking this question to us. If there is a lack of trust and disappointments, then why we are still insisting on this strategic goal? Because we are not thinking in a narrow-minded way. We are not calculating the daily or short-sighted interest. We are looking the European Union membership as a strategic goal to have win-win relationship with the European Union and Turkey. Our story, our experience with the European Union, I mean, is very enlightening for many aspects of Turkey-Europe relationship. More than 5 decades, we have been engaging with the EU to be the full member, and there were many ups and downs in this adventure. But in recent years, and especially after 2004, when the Greek Cypriot side said no to Kofi Annan and then were awarded by the European Union as making them the EU member, of course, the blockage and prevention of the club increased. Then, when European Union is trying to criticize Turkey for many issues, they expect them to be constructive, but on the contrary, they couldn't understand the strategic importance of Turkey and Turkish contributions for European prosperity, stability, and security. Only one example is enough to understand the importance of our collaboration. 18th of March deal to prevent irregular migration to Europe. And when we implemented that 18th of March deal in 2016, everybody, I am sure, should agree that Turkey prevented millions of irregular migrants to Europe. I mean, this is only one example. We can talk and discuss many issues in different fields that Turkey can contribute to the European welfare and peace and security. With France, I think this is another new issue that they show us the hypocrisy of France vis-à-vis Turkey's foreign policy activities, which I try to explain to you the reasons of that. In Libya, in Syria, I think they couldn't see or understand, or they don't want to understand our objectives in those areas. And also, to some extent, they use some arguments for domestic consumption, for domestic policy, and then they created that tension. We, from Syria to Libya, from Eastern Mediterranean to Nagorno-Karabakh, I mean, it doesn't matter the issue. We always, from the beginning, wanted to realize the things together with our allies. For instance, I gave example of our military operations in Syria. why we launched these operations unilaterally. Because in different fields, Turkey is being criticized generally of taking unilateral steps. I mean, we are not ambitious to take unilateral steps for anything. But if you cannot collect your allies and friends' support and cooperation, then you should do something yourself then. And when we try to do something to secure our interests, then it's not fair to claim that Turkey is taking unilateral steps. We will follow, we will pursue this strategic goal, and we believe that our friends and allies will understand to look at the big picture.
How, Ambassador, are you going to resolve a rather broken relationship with France and indeed with Greece? Because we're all members of NATO, we're all members of one family, and somehow we do have to move forward.
I believe that there is no problem in NATO, and there is a confusion of the relationship of NATO and the EU. I mean, because there are many issues which should be considered on a bilateral basis. But when our counterparts are carrying the bilateral issues to the international organization, then that is the problem. And that is the hypocrisy. I mean, we had issues with Greece for the Eastern Mediterranean or Aegean, and we are ready to talk with them. We are ready to have dialogue with them. But this is not the issue. It should not be the issue of the EU. And as I tried to explain you at the beginning, if there is a solidarity in the EU, then there should be a solidarity in NATO as well. But we should not forget that if the bilateral issues can be solved bilaterally, then there is no need to carry those issues to international organizations and to poison the international organizations' general atmosphere and spirit.
I think perhaps I might return now to Roddy, because I think you might want to pose a question, and then perhaps we would look to, if we have time, to some questions from our very big audience. Roddy?
Olga, thank you. And Your Excellency, thank you very much for your extremely balanced overview in response to Sir David and other questions. You've answered the questions I was going to ask. So I think what we should do now is I will ask Doug Cook if he would field questions from those who've been listening. Doug?
Roddy, thank you. We do have a question from Togan Turgut. Togan, if you are there, would you ask your question, please?
Hi. So I have a question to Mr. Yalçın. So during the web talk, we had a large variety of very interesting topics, from foreign policy to the Russian defeat against Turkey in football. But I was curious about the London embassy's objectives in particular, and if Brexit caused any shifts.
Thank you for reminding me my main job.
Yes.
But this is, I mean, the guilt belongs to Roddy, Olga, and David. I mean, they ask me general questions, and thank you for reminding me my job.
Yes.
Of course, as two non-EU members, but NATO allies in opposite part of Europe, our cooperation, our relations will become more relevant and important for not only bilateral issues, bilateral trade on business, but also for European prosperity and stability. Now, for us, of course, seeing the end of this transition period with the EU is important, because we have a wonderful relationship and cooperation in trade, business, and investment and tourism, and we don't want to see any disruption in our bilateral trade and business because of Brexit. And we are now about to finalize our negotiations for free trade agreement. But of course, many things will depend on the UK's talks with the EU for a deal. If there is a deal with the EU, then our free trade agreements will facilitate our relations in trade and business, and that will be a bright future for all of us. But if there is no deal, anyhow, we are preparing ourselves for that scenario as well, to diversify our trade and business in different sectors. But that option would not be an easy one. And because of that reason, today we are closely following the UK-EU talks on their deal. And secondly, of course, during the pandemic, we didn't stop our contacts and talks. Of course, we stopped the visits, but high-level telephone talks and contacts continued. And for Turkey-UK relationship, the driving forces are trade, business, the defense industry, and cooperation on security, not only bilateral but also regional one. And also for us, the UK's stance and approach for our region's issues are always and historically and strategically important, from Middle East to Cyprus as one of the guarantors. And because of that reason, our relationship for the post-Brexit era will become more relevant and important. When our president visited the UK last year during the NATO summit in November, both our authorities underlined the importance of this new era relationship. And I hope post-Brexit era will create new opportunities for the UK and Turkey. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Ambassador, if I may, I'll ask the question for him.
Yeah, please.
He asked, he said you've taken us on a tour of all your neighbours except for Iran, and he really wanted you to, if you could explore a little bit about Turkey's policy towards Iran.
Yeah, of course, I most probably forgot many of our neighbors, not only Iran, because fortunately or unfortunately, we have many neighbors, and it's not easy to mention each of them during 1 hour discussion. Of course, I wish I would be the diplomat of Iceland and not to have a neighbor and to talk many issues generally, but it is difficult part of our job to explain all our relations with each of our neighbors. And Iran is our, of course, very, very important neighbor. And again, long border, and we had historical relations. And we, from the beginning, we always have been against the embargo or sanctions, because we are against sanction policies, and we have very good relations in trade, and human-to-human contacts are very important for us. And because of that reason, any tension or any problems or any issues related to Iran has a direct impact on us, on our security, on our economy. And because of that reason, whatever is important for Iran or about Iran has direct implications for us. In many areas, we are developing our relations. But if you wonder about the sanction policy, I mean, we are not supporting those unilateral sanctions. Of course, we are supporting the UN-based regulations or limitations. But I think the important thing is not to corner countries or societies, but the engagement policies are more fruitful and useful to get the result.
Ambassador, thank you. We have a question from, I'm going to go to Anne Crossfield. Her question was, how can we strengthen UK-Turkish trade opportunities? And what are the most important sectors in this context? If you could discuss that, please, Ambassador. Thank you.
Now, of course, for trade with the UK, during the pandemic, we also saw that the health sector is very important. Maybe in the past we couldn't develop this sector, but now we understand the importance of the health sector. And of course, innovation is important. And also now the defense industry is developing. And also electronics and automotive sector is driving force in our trade relations. Of course, food and organic food, and also the hospitality and service sectors are very important between us. And I believe that we can do more in health sector and tourism. We know that there are thousands of British people who have their second home in Turkey. And we, before the pandemic, we reached the 2.6 million tourists to Turkey. And I believe that post-Brexit, and I hope post-pandemic, we can diversify our trade and business relations in different fields. And construction is also important. Turkey's construction companies are very strong, and I know that the UK government has ambitious plans for building new places, and because of that reason, I believe that in the future, the Turkish construction companies can get some chances here. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you. It's fascinating. And we've got a series of questions here, and I'm not going to be able to put all these questions because we're running out of time. What I would propose to do is go back to Lady Olga. Perhaps if Lady Olga and Sir David, if you could just close and add any final comments for the Ambassador. Thank you.
Well, Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for your very wide-ranging remarks. To swing from China to America and all places in between is quite something. I think for us, I want to be really reassured that the relationship with Western Europe will really deepen after a lot of hiccups this year with France and Greece. But I'm very heartened that I think there really could be a proper trade deal between UK and Turkey. That's bearing in mind that we finally get an agreement with the European Union. I think trade, in the end of the day, is how real friendships, lasting friendships, really develop, and with all the visitors that go to Turkey as well. But you have touched upon perhaps a new horizon of Turkey. Turkey perhaps now become more confident, more independent-minded, surrounded by, as you quite rightly said, a very volatile region, which you have to navigate in Turkey's interest, which is quite understandable. But I hope that whilst you forge your relationships east and south, that you will also really bear in mind Western Europe and the UK, because we are here to serve. But there are a lot of bumps along the way with good friends. But Turkey has had ambassadors in the UK since the 16th century, so we have a lot to build on. Ambassador, thank you very, very much indeed. Thank you. Over to Sir David.
Thank you very much, Ümit. I'd like to go back to 2004 when the accession negotiations started. They started, above all, driven by Jack Straw, who was then our Foreign Secretary. And Jack Straw, as you probably know, will say that the start of those negotiations was the thing which he regarded as the greatest success of his time as Foreign Secretary. Now, from then, indeed before then, and for many years, you regarded us as your closest friend in the European Union. And that's important. And I think it's important because at that time, during those years, we both perceived this was a relationship in which we both had tangible interests and an interest in driving the relationship forward for concrete and tangible reasons. I think that is not quite how I see things at the moment. And I would very much like to go back to those times. Not obviously changed enormously, but it was a productive relationship from which both profited and in which we both respected each other's aspirations and objectives.
David, thank you, Olga, thank you, David. Jack Straw is still making his contribution to Turkey-UK cooperation and relations as the co-chairman of Tatlıdil Forum. And because of that reason, I really appreciate our friends' support and constructive approach to our issues or to our problems. I believe that the European Union also will see the big picture and we will overcome these hurdles in a friendly and constructive way. And also, I would like to thank all of you and Asia Scotland Institute for providing this opportunity with me to be able to see my friends and also to be able to say something about our foreign policy to the distinguished audience. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best during this lockdown days, and I hope we can come together face to face after these difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for the extraordinarily clear description you've given of Turkey and its relationship with other countries, and how she is facing the challenges that confront us all at the moment. And I'm very grateful to you for having participated in this webinar. Thank you.
Ambassador, thank you very much from the Asia Scotland Institute, and that was Roddy Gale just finishing then. And thank you to everybody that's joined us on this call. It's delighted to see you all this afternoon. And hopefully you all can tune in to one of our future webinars. I think the next one on the 2nd of December with Mr. Stephen Bird from the Chief Executive Officer of Aberdeen Standard Life. So thank you very much indeed to everybody for joining us. Thank you. Goodbye.